And welcome to another edition of the Living Large Theater Podcast. How are you, my friend? I am Billy Santiago, along with my good friend of 36 years, Gary Rodriguez, super producer, Noe Ayala. You can reach out to us on our Gmail account at livinglargetheater@gmail.com. We're available on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Prime, the iHeart Podcast Network. And if you want to become a sponsor of this fine show, you better hurry up because sponsorships are filling up. 956-451-1633. That's our producer, Noe. Please, no calls after what?
10 o'clock?
10 o'clock, okay.
10 o'clock, please.
So rate our podcast, share with a friend, leave us a comment, and more importantly, hit that subscribe button so the next time we have a podcast, you'll be notified.
Hey, thank you, Billy, for that great opening. And again, congratulations to our super producer, Noe Ayala. Got people calling him, wanting to do their own podcasts, and we are more than willing to farm him out as long as you have the money. No money, no Noe. So you got him. All you need. The season 4 of the Living Large Theater Podcast.
It's our fifth,
season 4.
Somewhere around there.
Season 4, episode 8. That's right.
Okay, there we go.
Season 4,
okay.
episode 8. Remember, admission into the Living Large Theater is always absolutely
gratis.
Free. All you need is a sense of humor and a thirst for entertainment, and we have that today. We have several issues and topics that we're going to be touching on. We're going to talk about Father's Day. This is Father's Day weekend, and it is something that I think is really important because
Bravissimo.
I think probably over the last 25, 30 years, fathers have sort of been neutralized, diminished, deconstructed. I don't know. I don't want to get on my soapbox here, but we want to extend a huge congratulations and happy Father's Day to all the fathers listening and all the potential new fathers, their sons, their brothers, and we just want everybody to know that here at the Living Large Theater Podcast, we appreciate dads. There's a big expectation of dads. You got to be a good dad. You got to be a present dad. You have to issue a little discipline now and then. And, you know, I think those are the key formula ingredients for being a good dad. Also, we're going to talk about hurricane season with Chief Meteorologist Tim Smith from KRGV
Bravissimo.
Channel 5 here in the Rio Grande Valley. Now, we're in the Rio Grande Valley, but we're going to talk to Tim about hurricane season as it might apply to you. If you're not here in the valley, maybe you're on the East Coast and you're going to have a chance to see a potential hurricane down the road this summer or early fall, but that's one of the things we try to do. We're here because we're here, but we want to reach you even if you're not here. Billy Santiago, I tell you what, man, years and years of radio, and one of the best things about it is we're almost all retired. Tim's still among the working, much younger than us, but we have put together a little luncheon group, and Tim joined us this past Wednesday. And I'm telling you what, man, it's a really good thing to be able to reflect.
Who won the trivia contest, though? I want to know that right off the top.
I thought you did.
Okay. That's what I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure, okay?
So, you know, having worked with a lot of the guys there in some form or fashion or place along the way in my radio career, it's great to be able to come back and get their perspective on things that happened in media, whether they were on television like Tim, advertising like Jeff Schmatz, or on radio like you and I. And believe it or not, I think that is why this program succeeds as it does. We have 3 great corporate sponsors. First of all, we want to do a hats off to Ward Thomas, our number 1 benefactor, one of the first to come on board and help us out, providing us with these great studios here at Majestic Studios. We also have to recognize corporate sponsor, the Texas Sportsman, Fred Rodriguez. He has helped us so much, especially when we're looking to do something on South Padre Island. And Fred Rodriguez was very instrumental in helping us secure our 3rd corporate sponsor, White Sands Marina in Port Isabel, Texas. We have those sponsorships and those partners, and we are so proud that they have hitched their wagon up to the Living Large Theater Podcast horses.
Hey, Gary, you know, we're talking about Father's Day, right? And I think about when I was a junior in high school, going to Friday football games.
That's a long time ago, right, Billy?
Yes.
You're already a father?
It was early 70s. And my dad would tell us, be home at 11 o'clock. And one time we decided to go have pizza with a bunch of our friends after the game. We didn't get home until 12:30. And so the next day he tells us, hey, if you ever get arrested and go to jail, don't call me to come get you out.
Oh, hey, tough love.
That's stuck
Tough
with
love.
me. And my dad's ex-military. He was, sergeant first class in the military. So.
Telling you, man, tough love. You got to do it. You got to dole out the discipline. And I read a psychology study years and years ago that if a child is not disciplined, he equates that with not being loved by his parents. So as much as they may complain and try to run, they equate discipline with love and affection and care. Tim Smith, welcome to the program.
Good day, gentlemen. Good to see you guys.
Happy Father's Day.
To you guys as well.
Yes, brother.
That goes back a while, doesn't it?
Hey, man.
You're talking about Father's Day. I used to be part of something called the Hidalgo County Fatherhood Initiative. And it was really a cool organization. It was trying to keep dads involved with their kids because there was a statistic that of the incarcerated men in the country,
Yeah.
I don't remember what the number was. It was like 75, 80% grew up in homes without a dad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing how.
Isn't it almost like a direct correlation?
Yes, because they don't have that father figure in their lives. And so they end up getting in trouble.
So when that group would meet, what would y'all do? I mean, obviously, you're a TV personality down here. You recognize everywhere. And I think as Dusty Hayes told us one time at B104, people that see you on TV or hear you on the radio, they have sort of a little bit more trust in you than maybe they should, but they can't help it. It's called associated status. So when you were there, everybody knew that it was Tim Smith from Channel 5. But what would the group do, and what would your input be?
Well, the group was all about keeping dads involved one way or another, and especially from broken families, from divorced families.
Yeah.
How do you keep the dad part of that family? And activities to put the dads with the kids on those weekends when dad had the kids.
Yeah.
What can we do for them to make it special so that the kids really feel that they're part of that?
Just amazing.
Yeah, and it really, really made a difference. And I went through that, myself. I went through a first marriage that didn't work.
Yeah.
And so, but my weekends, every weekend was with those kids.
Yes.
It had to be.
Yeah.
And I had friends who said, well, my ex-wife lives in Houston and I see my kids once every 6 months. It's like, how could you live
do
like
that?
that?
It's tough.
Yeah. How do you live like that? I drove back and forth to Austin every weekend for 10 years.
Hats off right there, man.
But that's what you do. That's what you have to do.
So the fathers that would take part in this, they were from Hidalgo County, and did they want to be there, or were some of them forced to be there? I mean,
well, most wanted to do it.
Okay.
Most understood what it was about, and if they were there, they were there because they understood.
Yeah.
Some, you'd have to kind of twist their arms to get them to get involved, but they would. And once you got them there, they kind of got it.
Yeah.
They saw how much the kids appreciated that and how much the kids loved having them there. And they may not say that. Kids express emotions differently, but they appreciated their dads being there and being part of their lives, and that was hard.
I had some former coworkers that had kids that were divorced, and when they were scheduled to do something on a weekend, they would come to me and go, "Hey, Bill, I got my kids this weekend. Is there any way I can have the weekend off?" And I was always accommodating to them because I think it's so important. You're right, Tim. You need, even though you're not with them day in and day out, being part of your son, your daughter's life as they're growing up is so important.
There was a time, when my daughter was, 5, 6 years old, when I wasn't living with them. We were separated. We were divorced, and she had dance every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And that's when a light switch flipped for me, because at first it was like, Saturday morning, we got the weekend, and we have to go to dance.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, where else would you want to be?
That's right.
That's where you want to be. And when that light came on, and it really was an aha moment when you go, well, crap, of course I want to be
That's
here.
right.
Where else would you want to be? And from that point on.
That's an amazing revelation, because you want to be there, and you were there. It made an impact on her, and I'm sure she looks back on that fondly. And in my case, I have 3 kids, and I don't have many regrets in life. One of my regrets is my daughter, Deanna, grew up in North Carolina. I would bring her down here every summer until she got of age to work, and she told me, she's a little hillbilly. She goes, "Daddy, I can't go this summer. I got a job at Peter Piper." And so when that happened, we would have to just go over there, travel, and visit with her. But, long distance, and then my sons are here, so I managed to be their baseball coach, even though I know nothing about baseball, their basketball coach at the boys club, even though I know nothing about basketball and their football coach because I know a little bit of something.
Hey, but you at least tried,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There you go.
And,
You were
my
there.
reason was because I was available. I had the time to do that. And I just think that, what you did and what I try to do, I think we all should try to aspire to that. Spend as much time with our kids as we can and not look at them as a burden or an obligation. Oh darn it, I got to go do that again.
Right.
Because you know what? Once they get their driver's license,
Oh, yeah.
Cats in the cradle,
Yeah, that's right, man.
And
They're
the next
gone.
thing you know, they're in college and away from home. I'm lucky. Both of my kids still live at home. My son graduated from college. He's got a full-time job. He helps with the household expenses. My daughter's her second year of college. I wish she got a part-time job this summer, but no, she's
Peter
got
Piper.
she's got a part-time job. She babysits kittens
There you go.
and
Oh, there you
dogs
go.
and kids.
Hey, that's an important service
Yeah,
right
so
now.
a little chump change, but
Yeah.
every once in a while she'll, hey, Dad, can I go to Chick-fil-A and charge it on your card? And I go, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. What are you going to do? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And bring me something.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what are you going to do Father's Day Sunday, Tim?
We'll be on the island over the weekend. We're going to come back sometime Sunday and spend time with my daughter who lives here.
Oh, nice.
And my grandchildren who live here. So
Yeah.
we're going to spend time with them on Sunday.
Good deal.
But first, we're going to the island. Got to go there first.
Do it,
you
man.
know.
That's a
That's
necessity.
your
that's every
sanctuary,
weekend.
isn't it?
It is. You cross that bridge, and just like you guys know, you've been out there a lot. And Fred's
Oh,
a
yeah.
good friend, and we love the White Sands, your sponsors, and
The
Fred,
best.
and we spent last weekend with Fred and Cindy.
Yeah.
And just had a great time together. Great
I bet that
friends.
was fun. I bet it got a little crazy.
Have you gone out
I'm not
fishing
gonna,
with
I
him?
can't. That's it. What's that?
Have you gone out fishing with Fred? and
We're
Sam?
working on that. I think that's going to be my birthday gift
Well-
from Fred. Yeah.
Well, we got one coming. We
got one
We
coming,
were supposed to
yeah.
go,
I'm
but
still waiting, Fred.
we were supposed to go, but there were high
listening.
winds that day. It was a Friday, and
You're welcome.
Hey, we
Fred's-
want to thank Arnold and Corina Flores out
yeah.
of White Sands Marina just for,
Yes,
we
yes.
were there in April. They made us feel right at home. They very generous, very down to earth, and you're thinking these people own this entire property, including the restaurant, and they are just so down to earth, and you can chit chat with them, and they were so supportive of our shows. We interviewed Arnold and we visited with Corina, and all their customers just made us feel really good there. So I don't blame you for going to the island.
They're owned by military as well. They're military.
They're both military veterans. Thank you, Noe. That's right. They are both veterans. It's a veteran-owned business, and like I told Arnold when we first started going out there, I said, I've probably driven around by this place 1,000 times, never stopped.
Yep.
And the one time I did stop, I met Johnny Barrera, the bartender.
Johnny.
Johnny, crazy Johnny.
Yep.
You know Johnny?
Oh, I know Johnny. Yeah. Who doesn't know Johnny? Yeah.
But we're really happy that they've come on board as corporate sponsors of the Living Large Theater podcast. So, Bill, what are your plans for Father's Day?
Well, my sister-in-law called me today and asked me, so, Bill, what are we going to do? I go, hey, look, I can barbecue some steaks if you want.
Ooh.
If you want to order them from a restaurant, I highly recommend Texas Roadhouse. You can call ahead.
Yeah,
get 'em
can't go wrong
ordered,
with that.
And so she's putting it together now, so we'll see what happens. I says, hey, 11-ounce ribeye, I'm good to go with a baked potato.
There you go, man.
There you go. I'm
A
easy.
simple man he is.
There you go.
Meat and potato, man.
The good thing about it is Father's Day falls, I think, theoretically, or at least meteorologically. That's a crazy word to say.
Meteorologically.
Yeah. take two, Gary. Meteorologically.
Close enough.
It just
All
made
right.
up a word. Go ahead.
Weather-wise.
The day before or a couple of days before, some expected rains here in the Rio Grande Valley. Much needed rain, I might add. But, I know you don't have a crystal ball with you, but what are we looking at, Tim?
A good chance of rain. We really are. As we look
I saw
into
that.
the middle part of the week following Father's Day, probably Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 to 6 inches of rain widespread, which we can really use. And if it doesn't
Oh, my
fall
goodness.
all within 1 hour, we're in good shape. And it shouldn't. It should
Yeah.
fall over 3 days or so.
Yeah.
And, as long as everybody does their due diligence and keeps the couch out from the drainage ditch,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and the leaves
And the
from-
refrigerator.
yeah, exactly. They're always there. We need to find those people and bill them for all the flooding that it causes.
Absolutely.
But it could be some really good rain in the valley, and we're in abnormally dry or light drought right now in the valley proper.
We need
so we get 5 inches of rain. That's over at least for now. Then
Yeah.
we need to get it up into the watershed, and there will be some in the watershed too, and that's where we
Thank you, Jesus.
desperately need it. Yes.
Thank you, Jesus.
Nothing like Miami. What's happening?
Oh, we
out
hope
there,
not.
right?
We hope not.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
Miami, they had this fire hose effect, we call it, where it's just you
Just
know, it just goes
nonstop.
and goes and goes. And
Yeah.
I know our weekend guy, Andrew Chung, is from Miami, and he's over there, and he can't get home. He can't get a flight out.
Wow.
I think he hopefully gets back in time this weekend to work, so I don't have to cover for him. But I'm watching his
Take
flight
a boat.
status.
I'll go in for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Tim,
thank you.
do you have a studio set up at your place on the island?
You know, kinda.
Kind of.
You need a little,
Just
you
in
need a little,
case.
you need a little green board, right?
Yes,
That's
we've
all
done
you
stuff.
really need, right?
We've done stuff from there. We have indeed.
There you go.
So, but and we're only our elevation at the island is about 10 feet. So any big storm surge, we're in trouble. But hopefully we won't see that in my lifetime.
Let me ask you this: this rain that we are getting, before we jump into talking about hurricanes, what system is it associated with? I mean, where's it coming from?
It's coming up from the Bay of Campeche down the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. It's nothing right now. There's nothing there right now. And that's the amazing part about models nowadays is we
Yeah.
can see stuff before it exists. And we think that probably by Monday, the day after Father's Day, we're going to see a low pressure develop down there, perhaps a tropical depression, maybe a low end tropical storm, and then it's going to move west northwestward, probably into Mexico. When I say it, talk about, let's just say the center of a very large system moves into Mexico down to our south, but it's such a big system that a lot of the north side rain comes right over Texas and right over South Texas and northeast Mexico.
That's
So-
interesting.
That's what we need.
So if there's nothing there now, what factors do y'all use in your calculation or calibration to determine that something could potentially form out of that?
Well, the models do a really good job of analyzing that stuff, and what we can see is that the sea surface temperatures are really warm, not just there, but throughout the Atlantic. But down there, the sea surface temperatures are very warm, both in the Bay of Campeche and in the Pacific Ocean on the other side of Mexico.
Yeah.
The water's really warm, and there was a wave coming across, a tropical wave basically coming across, and it's going to get into there. And the question was, is it going to which side of the land mass is it going to form on the Pacific
Yeah.
side or the Gulf side? And it looks like it's going to be on the Gulf side based on what we're seeing in the models, and then it's
got
going to
you.
move west-northwest. And there's a big high that's going to block it from coming north, so we don't have to worry about, I don't think, any prolonged period of wind or anything like that. It's not like we're going to get a hurricane.
Yeah.
Probably not even going to get tropical storm force winds for any sustained moment. Now, any individual thunderstorm could produce gusty winds. I mean, there could be brief gusty winds,
Yeah.
but not like you think of when you think of a hurricane or tropical storm. where it
Nothing
just
really
blows
destructive.
for hours.
Yeah.
It could gust 50 or 60, but it's a few seconds versus a couple of hours. So and that's just a brief gust from one of the bands that comes around it.
Yeah.
But ultimately the core of it, the center of it, stays south of it. So that's where the heaviest rain is. But we end up with, again, 3 to 5 inches of rain widespread. When you get that, you get isolated pockets of double that sometimes. So you just have to hope that isolated pocket of double that doesn't happen on a flood prone area that floods every time they get an inch of rain. So that's all will play out next week.
Now
But
you're from Indiana.
I am
Okay. You came to the Valley 82?
81.
81. Okay. So
It's a long time ago.
you've probably
Jeez.
been
Few years
through
back.
10 hurricanes at least, or
There have been a lot come through here since I came right after Hurricane Allen. Allen was in 80. I got here in 81.
Okay.
And everybody was talking about Allen when I got here. It's like, oh, it was awful and terrible, and it still wasn't the benchmark storm Beulah in
Yeah.
67 was. But after that, we went through a little storm called Barry in 1983. It was a hurricane, but it was minimal. We called it Barely, Hurricane Barely. And a number of them after that, yeah.
And then my first one was Hurricane Gilbert in '88.
88,
Yep.
sure.
That was we called it the Beanie Weenie Hurricane because that's what we had
that's
to
all
eat.
we ate.
Yeah.
we lived at the
happens.
radio station, and everybody was told to go home, get your sleeping bag and your beanie weenies,
there you go.
and come back, and you're not leaving till this thing's over. And
And that's the way it works in a storm.
That's
You
right. That's
move in.
exactly right.
There's,
So
there's actually people that have hurricane parties here when there's a hurricane. I don't know if you all heard that.
Well,
I've seen that.
I've heard about that in this room, probably.
Yeah.
I
let me
know
ask
the
you
boss,
this,
yeah.
man. So, how did Tim Smith? And I'm not trying to blow smoke up anything. I'm just trying to acknowledge something that I think everybody else here will confirm. How did you become the guy that people go to for their information during hurricanes, tropical storms, or rain events, or whatever? I mean, is it something that was in your training, or is that just your personality that you want to be dependable and depended on?
Well, you do something long enough, you become the senior guy in the market. That matters to begin with. When I got here in 81, I was in the shadow of the great Larry James.
Yeah.
And he was the guy. In the late 90s, they moved him down, and he ended up retiring. And so then I became the senior guy in the market.
Yeah.
So that matters. I mean, that carries a lot of weight. But also, we take the responsibility very seriously. Most days there's nothing going on. You can laugh and joke. But when there's a storm out there, people's lives are at stake.
That's
People's
a good point.
property is at
You
stake.
get serious.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen you get serious.
And they talk about when the jacket comes off, something's going on. You roll up the sleeves, loosen the tie, something's going on.
Yeah.
And so, we understand the severity of it. And we understand it's going to impact people's lives.
Yeah.
It's going to impact our lives, you know. So we need to take it seriously and convey that message the best we can, because, you know, we want to keep people safe. We want people to do everything. We want to do what we can do to get people the knowledge they need to stay safe during a storm, and before, during, and after.
What do you think about these rains coming this coming week? Is there something we need to prepare for, like, you know, flashlights and beanie weenies and water? Or?
Well, always have the beanie weenies. You know? That's, you know, because their shelf life is about 30 years. So I've still got some from Gilbert, I think. I may open those for Father's Day. That might be, you know. So.
But Tim, you know what? We partnered with Channel 5 when I was at iHeart for a number of years, and you were always available to us when hurricane season was around. And I'll never forget that one time where the power went out at Channel 5. We're broadcast next door in Weslaco. And so we told Tim, yeah, come on over, man. So for a good while there, Tim was over at our studios doing updates, and he had a camera guy shooting. So he was live from our studio. But you know, sometimes Gary, you and I covered hurricanes throughout the years, man. You know, things happen. And you have to make adjustments. You have to pivot, you know, because you got to keep the coverage coming, you know. And you were king about that, man.
And I like what Tim said. The fooling around stops. I mean, nobody fools around more than me, to a fault, you know. But when you know you have a storm bearing down, nobody knows what the outcome's going to be. You take off the dumb hat and you put on you know, the serious hat, and you try to convey a concise message to people that, hey, this is serious. Be prepared. Get your batteries. Get your beanie weenies. Get your water. Get your fuel. And just, you know, trust that we're trying to give you the most updated information. So who's somebody you gave hats off to? Larry James.
Of course.
He was a great man and a great forecast. Was he a meteorologist?
No, he was not, but he was one of the best forecasters. For not being a meteorologist, he really knew weather.
He knew what he was doing. But aside from Larry, who do you look up to, or who have you looked up to in terms of you want to be like them?
That's a great question. My gosh, a lot of what I learned from some guys at AccuWeather. If you're familiar with AccuWeather,
Joe Bastardi.
Joe Bastardi is one of them, and Joe, you don't talk to, you listen to. You know, but he's a great guy. You know, and Joe Bastardi is really smart. There's another guy there named Dan Kotlowski, who has been a friend, and I say friend because I've been working with him since I started at Channel 5.
Oh,
and
wow.
He retired a couple of years ago, and he's out, but. He went to Purdue. I went to Indiana, so rival colleges. But he's one of the smartest meteorologists I know. And I've learned so much from him over the years, and I really appreciate everything that he has done. He's just one of the tropical weather gurus in the nation, and he really knows what he's doing.
And very generous.
Absolutely. And he'd come down at least once a year, and we just sit and talk hurricanes and talk weather. And he still comes down. We do a conference on the island every year in April, and he comes down for that.
Oh, there you
just
go.
to be part of it. Even though he's retired, he comes to spend time with us.
That's beautiful.
And we appreciate that. So Dan, and a good friend in San Antonio, Alex Garcia, who's at Vox 29 up there. He's been in the business just a little bit longer than I have, but he's just, I think, king of the hill. He knows how to do it, does it right, and I just appreciate what he does. He's a good friend and good at what he does.
Hey, Tim. When you're out in the street, do people actually blame you for the weather?
Oh, good question.
Just nodding my head, yes.
I'll be the first one. My mom, if she's listening, she actually is the one that tells me, Tim lied to me again.
Let's talk about that.
Sure,
you base your forecasts. First of all, you are a meteorologist, but you can only deal with what's dealt to you. So you look at models and you make the predictions, and something happens. It's not as bad as you thought it was going to be, or the model said it was going to be, or it's worse than the model suggested it was going to be. You're willing to take that responsibility because you are a professional, and at the same time, people have to understand that you're using other information to base your forecast on.
And you know, you're right, and it's all model driven, and we've got so many models to look at, and how we analyze those models is based on our experience. Right now, if you look at the global forecast system, the GFS model, which is the main U.S. long-range model. This time of year, you look at it, and usually out about 10 to 15 days into the future, it'll spin up a hurricane and say there's going to be a hurricane. In fact, yesterday it said, we've got this system coming next week, but then the week after, there's going to be a hurricane sit on the coast right near Matamoros for about 5 days. It's like,
oh, wow.
Wow. And we call those model canes because they never happen.
Yeah.
You know, the model says it's going to happen, but they don't. But and today I looked at the same model and it said, oh, that same hurricane that was going to be here. Now it's going to be in the Florida Panhandle.
Okay.
In 10 days.
Yeah.
Now tomorrow it's going to say it'll be in Key West, and then the next day it'll say it's going to be in New Orleans. And it's always 10 to 15 days out.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't understand that, and you don't know that, there's a lot of we call them meteorologists who see that model and
Meteorologist, I love that.
And they take that and they put that on Facebook and say, look, there's going to be a hurricane in 2 weeks, and hit Matamoros and sit there for a week, and they're wrong.
Yeah,
it's just going to be
and
wrong.
Next thing you know, all the gas stations are piled up with cars and people trying to get their fuel.
Exactly.
And Tim, we talked some time back about where do you go to find your next weather person, meteorologist. Well, how do you find people? Because it's interesting that you got Andrew out of Florida, and I understand he went to Florida State.
He did, yep.
And I don't know where he learned Spanish, but my God, there's one hurricane coverage, man. He was talking in Spanish, talking in English. I'm going like, man, he talks better Spanish than I do, man. Where do you find people?
He's amazing. Andrew's amazing. And Andrew, I've known Andrew for a long time, and he'd kind of been around Texas. He worked in Austin, El Paso, Beaumont, but he came from Miami and was working all over Texas. And he was just when the market crashed in whatever year it was,
2008.
Yeah, he found himself out of work in Austin, and so he left his stuff in a storage unit, moved back to Florida, and we were looking. So when the time came, we said, Andrew, you want to come back to Texas?
And he was already a meteorologist.
Yeah, he was a
meteorologist.
He was Florida State meteorologist, and because he's older than he looks.
Yeah.
And he's been in the business a long time.
He's a baby face.
Yeah, he is. And he says, well, my stuff is still in storage in Austin. I can be there pretty quick.
There you go.
And so he went and got his stuff, moved in, and he's been with us. Now, he left. He went home for a little while.
Yeah.
Because his mom was sick. He went home to take care of his mom, but he's back, of course, now.
Yeah.
Well, he's on an airplane, I hope, right now. On his way back. But yeah, we joked that we had to go to Miami to find a Korean to do Spanish weather in South Texas.
Amazing.
Wow.
I hear he
he
speaks
does
like
an awesome job.
4 or 5 languages.
Yeah, he's what's the word for a person who speaks lots of languages besides a multilinguist or something? But there's a word for those people, and he's
that's
amazing.
him.
Yeah, he's one. He's also a concert pianist.
Oh wow,
really?
You ought to hear him play the piano. It's amazing.
Oh my!
He'd be a good. I see a keyboard in here. You ought to bring him in sometime. Let him play something.
Hey,
for
we may bring him in.
So,
You know,
so it was
sometime.
interesting. I was watching the Spanish channel for some reason, and he came out, and I was like, is somebody else talking?
They dubbed that in.
Yeah, his Spanish is amazing.
I was impressed, man. I was going, wow.
What are we looking at this summer for? First, hurricane season started June 1st, and it ends November 30th.
Correct.
Again, no crystal ball, but what does Tim Smith think we're looking at? A hurricane or two because of conditions, or?
Well, for specific landfalling points, nobody has any idea.
Yeah.
But for
unless
sheer
you're
numbers.
Unless you're a meteorologist.
Exactly. There was somebody in Mexico. It was. I'm not going to say what website it was. I don't want to give them the credit, but they posted yesterday that major Category 5 Hurricane Alberto, which is the first name on the list, is going to hit northeast Mexico and South Texas and just rip it apart next week.
Oh wow!
And nothing says that's
kind of
gonna
reckless,
happen.
though, isn't it?
Oh, it's incredibly reckless, incredibly irresponsible, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that says that's going to happen, but in the 1 in a million chance that it does, they'll say, "See, we told you."
We told you.
Even though they're going to tell you,
100
times this hurricane season, and the one time they might be right. Then they're going to, see, we told you. We were wrong 99% of the time, but that one time we were right. Anyway, the season. It's going to be a really busy season, we think. And the reason is that, as I mentioned, the Atlantic Basin is at record warmth. Last year was a record hot season for the Atlantic sea surface temperatures. This year it's hotter than that.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And right now, middle of June, we're where we should be in late August as far as the water temperature in the Atlantic Ocean. So it's way above.
That's incredible.
And yeah, we're setting records daily.
And that's something to be at least cognizant of.
Sure, because warm water is fuel for a hurricane. It's high octane fuel. It's warm, it's fuel. If it's really warm, it's high octane fuel.
Let me ask you this: talking about Father's Day, there's these 2 little orphans that are always talked about in the summertime. One's called El Niño, the other one's called La Niña. What are they doing with regard to these conditions?
And when neither one's president is La Nada.
Right? La Nada. There you go.
And we're transitioning from El Nino to La Nina right now.
Okay.
And typically in a transition is when you tend to have a very active weather pattern across the country. And we've seen that this spring. Lots and lots of tornadoes, lots of activity this spring as we transition. from El Nino, which is warm water in the Pacific Ocean. Now, we transition to that water being cooler. It basically sloshes back and forth. And when that water starts to get cooler, it becomes La Nina. And in the neutral time, that's La Nada, when it's normal. We're transitioning from warm to cool right now in the Pacific Ocean, so from El Nino to La Nina. When El Nino is present, basically it pulls the westerly winds across the Atlantic farther south than they usually are. So if there's a hurricane trying to come from Africa to the United States, you get up high in the atmosphere, 5-6 miles up into the atmosphere, and that hurricane tries to grow. It needs to have height. And as it grows, the top gets torn off by those westerly winds. So it grows to 3, 4, 5 miles tall, and the top gets ripped off, and the hurricane can't grow. So what we saw last year, record warm temperatures in the Atlantic, so we had a whole lot of activity, but by the time it got to the Gulf or the Caribbean, the tops got ripped off, or they'd get turned away.
Yeah,
They stay out in the Atlantic. So if you look at a map of last year, the Atlantic was really busy, but very little in the Gulf and the Caribbean because El Nino either steered it away or sheared the top off as they got close.
Wow.
El Nino's gone, so that shear is gone now. So we expect a year like last year, except nothing to turn them away, nothing to shear the tops. So they're more likely to not just be in the Atlantic, but the Gulf and the Caribbean could be just as active as the Atlantic was last year. So the forecast is for 23 named storms, 23. The 30-year average is 14. So we're almost double the norm, if you will.
That's wild. And, and that's why you're number one, because you just painted through words a graphic image of hurricanes and what happens to them that a dummy like me can understand. But that's why you're number one, because you speak in our terms, what we can understand and relate to. And I think that's why you're number one, and we're glad to have you here at the Living Large Theater podcast, because we too provide a service, and our service is trying to entertain, number one, number two, inform. And even though you're not living in the valley and you're listening to us maybe up in Corpus or Houston or the Florida Panhandle, what Tim's saying right now could very well apply to you.
Absolutely. This stuff is, the hurricane season is something that impacts an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
And if we have 23 named storms, you got to figure something's going to hit land, whether it's the Florida Panhandle or Corpus or Boston or Miami or, Myrtle Beach or South Texas or maybe Tampico. With that many storms, there's going to be some hits. We're pretty confident in that. We don't know where for sure, but last year we got lucky because El Nino kept everything away.
Yeah.
But this year, those same numbers shift that whole thing farther to the west. It's the most storms that have ever been forecast, and they've been forecasting since the early 80s.
So these fires are happening in Mexico. Does it affect our weather, or just?
Yeah, the fires, the agricultural burning down in southern Mexico and Central America, and there's also some wildfires in Central America. It may play a little bit of a role. It creates this nasty haze that we've dealt with for a couple of months. Finally, this week, the air quality was back to good for the first time since March.
Wow.
It took that long to get it out of here, and I think it's, for the most part, gone. The agricultural burning's done. So, but it has some impact, but not a lot.
I'm getting an email right here from Paul in Biloxi, Mississippi. Wants to know, please ask Tim, which one is the Pacific Ocean? Is it the one close to California or the one close to North Carolina?
That's,
Come on, Paul.
Don't get us started. I don't know if you've seen the viral piece from Hurricane Hannah when spend a little time talking about geography and knowing where you live on a map. And, and knowing which is the Pacific and which is the Atlantic and which is the Gulf, but more importantly, knowing where the heck you are on the map, so that if I put a map up there that has a red box that says tornado
that was a
warning,
good question Paul just asked.
That was a great question.
You have to know.
Yeah, you got to know where you are.
Man.
And thanks, Paul, for sending that in. because don't get me started, because seriously, when we're talking whether it's a hurricane or a tornado, and specifically let's talk about a tornado for a second, because every hurricane generates tornadoes. If we put that red box on the map that says tornado warning, you look at that box and go, wonder if that affects me. Well, if you know where you live on the map, you know if you're under a tornado warning, because you look at that map and go, oh, yeah, I see that FAR is included in that box.
Yeah.
And I live in FAR.
You have to know. You have to do the basics, the fundamentals. And Tim just laid it out. Know where you are, know where the Pacific is, know where the Atlantic is, and definitely know where the Gulf of Mexico is.
That helps a lot. Yeah,
yes.
That's that big pool off to our swimming pool off to the east of us. But it's so important. And every we do Facebook Lives. We do a lot of them. Probably do one. A lot of them the next week or so because of what's going on. But we'll go on and we'll say, okay, got a severe thunderstorm warning. There's a storm near McAllen moving west towards Starr County. And the first question we get is, what about Brownsville?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
and so now what we learned from that, there's a marketing message in that, is if that's the first question we always get, that means we probably have some viewers in Brownsville, biggest
Yes.
city in the valley.
Hey.
So we probably should mention Brownsville right away. Brownsville, this is not
Yes.
impacting you. This is McAllen moving west away from Brownsville.
Yeah.
And whatever, and so, I've learned a lot over the years from just stuff like that.
Yeah.
That you really have to be very, very specific, because if you're not, then you're going to get questions that don't make any sense to us.
What do you say to those people that are like moving down to the valley? They're not prepared for hurricanes. What is it that they need to be prepared for this coming season of hurricane?
Well, first we tell them to be hyper aware. It's something that if you watch the news, listen to the radio, listen to a podcast, listen to something, even watch Facebook, but just be careful who you trust on Facebook.
Yeah.
But have a source that you're going to get weather information from, at least one, probably two. That way, if something goes south, you've got another one. And then pay very close attention. And if a hurricane's threatening, listen to what local authorities say. If they say get out, get out.
Yeah.
You're not going to be told to evacuate your brick home in North McAllen, but you are going to be told to evacuate your mobile home in Laguna Heights.
Yeah.
And
So do it.
yeah, just do it. Do what you're told to do.
And some people, they're stubborn. They won't leave their home when they need to.
Hurricane parties.
Yeah.
Noise house.
It's great. Hey, Tim, so, for a lot of years working in radio, we always had a public service campaign letting people know what they needed to do to prepare for a hurricane. And for those people listening to our podcast, just give us some tips on some of the more important things people need to be prepared for.
Well, you need to prepare we'll call it a go bag, whether it's a go bag or a stay home bag, something that is your emergency supplies kit. If you're planning to leave, let's say you live in a mobile home near the coast, or you live on the coast at all, then it needs to be a go bag. You need to plan to leave and have all your stuff in a bag ready to go during hurricane season. Just like in California, you've got your bag for an earthquake.
Yeah.
Here you have your bag for a hurricane. And when that warning is issued and you're given the word to evacuate, you don't have to go, okay, now what do I need? I need my papers. Oh, gosh, what? So you need your important documents. You need your water. You need canned food, stuff you can take with you in that go bag.
Do y'all put any of that on your website?
It's all on the web. Great
Okay.
question. KRGV.com, and there's a weather page, and there's Hurricane Central there, and all that stuff is there.
Okay.
And go there. And just, but if you stay at home, you're going to need stuff. You figure that, you've seen what happened with Ian in Fort Myers last year before, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You saw what happened with Katrina in New Orleans. You've seen what's happened in these big storms, and you see people that can't get help for 3, 4, 5 days.
Yeah, Harvey was that bad too.
Yeah. And you have to just plan for that. Say, look, nobody can get to me. Let's just say hurricane comes in tomorrow. It's going to take 5 days for anybody to get to me.
Yeah.
Can I survive without power, without water for 5 days?
Yeah.
Can I do it? And you look around your house, go, oh crap, no, I can't.
And that's the test.
That's the test. So then next time you go to the grocery store, pick up a 5-gallon bottle of water, pick up 2 or 3 canned things. And then every time you go to the store, add something to your collection.
Yeah.
So that when
That's my
storm
wife.
threatens- Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
There you go.
And then when the storm threatens and we say, okay, here it comes, you can look and go, I got this.
There you go.
I'm ready. I can lock the doors, you board the windows, whatever you're going to do, and then ride it out. And if you don't have power, you don't have water, open that 5-gallon bottle.
Yeah.
And away you go.
And don't forget to pray.
Hey,
Hey, we're talking with Tim Smith. He is the chief meteorologist at KRGB TV Channel 5. Tim, I know you got to get to the station and put on your jacket and get to work. We've had this program in place a couple of weeks now. Is there anything that you wanted to say that we haven't said yet, that you thought about, well, I'm going to cover this with those guys? I know Billy likes to dominate everything. Is there anything that you would like to part with?
Oh, that's another good question. I just appreciate what you guys are doing. I think this is cool stuff. I love the programs. I love, I hear a lot of my friends on the programs. I like that. And then when I make new friends by listening to your program, it's like, oh, I want to meet that guy. I want to talk to that person. And I think that's really cool. And you guys are good at what you do. You've been doing this a long time. Your radio, experience pays off, and it makes it so that it's just fun to listen to.
Oh, that's enough about me. What do you think about me?
No, that's about Gary. That's Billy. Let me talk about you.
Hey, dude, I'm going to tell you, man, we thank you so much for being accessible to us and being as basic as you can with people, like Paul in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Thank you, Paul.
But, more than that, I just want to do my hats off to you for being the guy that we all depend on, we all turn to, and having that trust factor, because to me, that's very important. That guy in Mexico that forecast a terrible.
That meteorologist.
Yeah, he ought to be frog marched into a hurricane somewhere.
Well, it's important, and I guess that was probably the biggest message is know your source, know who you're listening to.
Yeah.
Whether you choose to listen to me or to anybody else at Channel 5 or anybody else, but just know and trust your source, because there's some bad sources out there, and the meteorologists that are out there can really steer you wrong. And so make sure you're paying attention to who it is you're getting your information from. You want good information, so pay attention.
Let's have a good rain this weekend. Let's have a safe hurricane summer. And just as importantly, let's have an awesome, safe, enjoyable Father's Day. Tim Smith, Channel 5 meteorologist, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
It's the Living Large Theater podcast. We're available on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Prime, the iHeart Podcast Network. Our address is livinglargetheater@gmail.com. Special thanks to the Texas Sportsman, Fred Rodriguez, our brand new corporate sponsor, the White Sands Marina Hotel.
That's right. And Ward Thomas.
Ward Thomas. We're here at the studios here in McAllen, enjoying it. And make sure you rate our podcast, share with a friend, leave us a comment. And if you want to become a sponsor of this fine podcast, reach out to our super producer, Noe Ayala, at 956-451-1633. We hope you have a happy Father's Day weekend. Until the next time, you keep living large, because we're living large.